It didn't rise, but it had to be reminded, Bill Mitchell would stuck his neck out about a mile, spent $20-something thousand on that tree.
2,000.
How much?
2,000.
Was it 2,000? He said 20,000. Well, I get it. But
There's a
anyway,
lot of money though.
I had to think of you though, got the phone lights in there and all that, so.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Anyone else at this time?
Before you go on, Madam Mayor, I read your letter to the editor in this week's Wilson County News, and I appreciated your vision and appreciation for the things that are going on in our city. Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Good. Okay, now we're going to go on to old business, 1A. Consideration and action to approve the minutes from special meeting February 25th, 2013. Councilman, do you have any questions on that?
Correction on spelling of the letters.
On 2A, Councilman Rodriguez's name is misspelled with an S instead of a Z. If there are no other changes, could I have a motion to accept?
Mayor, I move to approve the minutes from the special meeting February 25th, 2013.
Okay, can I have a second?
I second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Guerrero, second by Councilman Castillo. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Now, consideration and action to approve the minutes from February 28th, 2013.
I had made the mistake, I don't have those minutes. When I was going through them, I thought I had them all. You got the 28th February?
It's there's 26th is one page, and the 28th is the next two pages on the packet.
Oh, okay. Okay, I did. I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of February 28th, 2013.
Okay, may I have a second? I have a motion by Councilman Miller and a second by Councilman Rodriguez. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Consideration and action to approve the minutes from March the 14th, 2013. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of March 28th.
Okay, can I get a second?
I second.
We have a motion by Councilman Castillo, second by Councilman Guerrero. All in favor?
March 20th.
14.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did I say?
Actually, can we come back before we go ahead and call the vote? Let me bring one little point up here just for clarity. Under new business A, it says Councilman Miller made a motion to approve the ordinance amending the 2012-2013 budget with no change to the hotel motel line item. That almost reads like we were accepting it as it was presented. Should it be with change to the hotel motel line items back to the general fund versus no change?
Is that on the, that's for the 28th?
Yes.
We're voting on the 14th. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
That's okay. We can look at that.
We'll get there, okay. I'm confused, too many minutes.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
Okay, all in favor?
all right.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, now for the 28th. It says with no change to the hotel motel change.
It sounds as if we were accepting it as it was presented. It should read with change to the hotel motel line items back to the pre-proposal. I don't know what the wording should be, but this sounds almost like, yeah, we accepted it as it was presented and there was no change to it.
That's how the CNA was read.
Mr. Miller, my recommendation would be that we make the notation on there that you accepted the recommendation and amended it, provided it go back into the general budget.
That's acceptable.
Say what you want to say?
And stay away, yeah, just match the original budget.
Right.
Does anyone see any other changes needed? Corrections?
With that correction, I'll make the motion to approve the meetings for March 28th.
Okay, may I have a second?
I second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Miller, second by Councilman Guerrero, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, now we're going to go on to presentation, which is 2A, Employee of the Month for March 2013. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and citizens. Employee of the month for the March of 2013 is Rudy Vasquez. Rudy has been employed with the city since May 1989. During his tenure, Rudy has worked in every department of the city and ultimately reached the level of Public Utilities Director. Recently, with his vast experience, Rudy was instrumental in solving a low water pressure issue, saving both the city and the developer of an apartment complex at the Veterans Park area. Rudy worked with and mentored subordinates on troubleshooting procedures dealing with the above-mentioned project. I know it's been voiced, or Rudy has voiced to myself and some of the council and maybe some of the citizens that he is entertaining the thought of retiring soon. So he has initiated succession planning efforts with department supervisors in an effort to make a recommendation to the city manager if we have somebody on staff that can take on his duties, or if we should seek to hire or advertise for that position. Rudy has been instrumental in all operations of the city, so we wanted to recognize him today.
Okay, here we go. And one, yeah, just turn it right. And 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, we're going to make a little switcheroo here. For item 2B, we're going to move from the bottom. We're going to move item number
4D.
4D up to the 2B. So that's quarterly investment report, I'm sorry, CNA to approve a resolution replacing the City of Floresville investment policy from April 2006 by Laura Fagans.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and citizens. I asked her to move this so that we can do the approval resolution for the investment report, investment policy. Local Government Code Chapter 2256 of the Public Funds Investment Act requires public entities to define, adopt, and review a formal investment strategy and policy. Commonly referred to the PFIA, so when you hear the word PFIA, that's Public Funds Investment Act. PFIA requires City Council review and approve investment policy annually. And I included an updated investment policy in the packet. We actually replaced, y'all have investment policy from 2006 that needed to be revamped. It was easier just to replace the entire policy. There were several changes 2 years ago in the state. So, excuse me, so we replaced the entire investment policy for your review. There's a resolution as well that was included to show that we're adopting a new investment policy. The investment policy for the state statute says it must be written, it must emphasize safety, liquidity, yield, and public trust of all investment activity. This is your money, your cash, your bank accounts is what it's referring to. Policy must address and designate responsibility control, such as the city manager and I are both are considered the investment officers, so we have to go to training. You have to take 10 hours every 2 years. You can actually split it up and go 5 and 5, but most of the classes offered, you go every 2 years. Policy must, it also includes investment strategies for a particular fund and fund groups. And the PFIA also requires quarterly reporting to the governing board of your cash balances. Policy must include a reference selection of qualifying institutions. And right now, it just talks about having to go for depository, which Wells Fargo is your current depository. You could also do brokerage, which would be your Edward Jones. We don't have those kinds of funds that we invest right now. So if we had those types, we'd have to go for the policy to get them on the list that we can invest our money in. We can also invest our money in pools, they call investment pools that are set up by state statutorily as well. We have a little bit of money in one of those, Texas Pool, Techstar, and MBI, Texas Class, or those types. Most of your money in the city, though, is at Wells Fargo, your main depository. So if I don't know if there's any comments or questions,
I have a very specific question. You say we are replacing a current investment policy. What was not included in our package was that current investment policy, so I could identify what we're changing. And this doesn't clearly spell out what the changes are in the investment.
it is so different. I mean, this is a updated one that's been recently adopted at 2 different cities. So we can,
But again,
it would have been hard to redline. If you'd like, you can make a copy of it.
I'd like to be able to compare, if we are making an update to that policy, I'd like to know what
No, we're not making an update, we're replacing it.
Okay, or we're replacing an existing policy. Before making a decision on it, I'd like the opportunity to review the previous policy.
They're very similar, but it's just that, we can do that. Do you want to bring it back next time?
Do you have it?
I have it, but it's many pages, just like the other.
Again, they're
Yeah,
both
the
many
same.
pages, but if we're going to make a decision about replacing a policy, I think it is incumbent upon us to know what the existing policy is and compare that to the new policy. And obviously the justification for the changes, you've highlighted some new regulatory pieces, but I'd like to be able to review that. As such, I'll make a motion to table.
Are the other council members who?
Ms. Laura, how do we decide, or who recommends that we change the policy?
Again, it's a state statute that requires you to write a policy.
Okay.
Cities, you can go out and you can find lots of different copies. Again, yours was from 2006. There have been a few changes on the type of investments, the amount of how your money is set. There was some wording on strategy. It just was, that policy was written by someone else, so I took one that I've actually had in another city, but last year was paid for a firm to help write. So,
And what is council's recommendation?
and so,
I recommend that she gets you a second copy, and as we had discussed, the second meeting of every month is gonna be our financial. So that'll give you substantial time to review that, so get you that other copy, and then You also have the investment report that the financial report that goes along with that, so that'll give you some time to read it. So table for good.
And I'm gonna go ahead and go on to the next one, presentation. It has to be on.
Well, we need to,
We have a motion on the floor.
Yeah.
Motion to
Sorry,
table.
motion to table.
Okay, I have a motion to table by Councilman Lee, do I have a second? Councilman Castillo, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
We allow her to do her presentation regardless of it.
Yes, and that's going to be consideration and action. I'm going back. Quarterly investment report for October through December 2012.
And it's just a presentation.
Presentation.
Per the Public Funds Investment Act, you're to receive a quarterly investment report. Also, your old policy followed the same, that guideline does not change. So this tonight was included in Schedule 1A. It shows the, again, beginning balances from October 1st through the ending balance of December 31st of your bank accounts. It's the balances at the bank. It's not necessarily money that you have on the books, because you might have outstanding checks. This is the balances from the bank statement, which is the part that has to be collateralized. You have $250,000 in FIU insurance. In addition, we receive, every month, we receive from Wells Fargo Pledge Holdings report, and that information is also at the very bottom of the report. It was $1,535,000 par value or book value of $997,425. So you were fully collateralized on your investments at Wells Fargo, which totaled $1,267,000. You have a small account with the Texas class, and it is different. It's a pool, so it doesn't have collateralization such as the pledge securities. So every quarter you'll be getting this report on your bank balances.
Can you explain, you said there's a line in here that says consolidated cash. Shows an ending of 1.1 million. Is this just kind of a, what's that?
That is almost all of your funds, which you talked about, your general fund, your water sewer fund, cemetery, refuse, the unemployment money that's in the small internal service fund, debt service fund, which is your, all those funds we talk about when we're doing investments, the monthly reports. All of that, those funds all have money in one bank account, and so they're separated on the balance sheet in my system. Excuse me. But again, this doesn't show you that because this is bank account balances, and they're not broken up in the bank. It is one large bank account. It's kept in with what is my books. On the back of my books is considered a 99 fund.
Okay, I understand where you're going. And so, in trying to understand this report, everything that's listed under Wells Fargo is current bank balances essentially.
Those are all individual bank accounts.
Right. And then what is MBIA Texas, is that an investment fund?
That's an investment pool.
Okay, so that's all we have set out in investments?
In that investment pool, yeah.
In any other investments?
No.
No CDs or anything like that? Okay, thank you.
We all know investments right now are very slim on the interest rates, so. And then again, as we slowly build up our fund balance, we will probably utilize some of the pools. The pools do make a little bit better interest rate. And that can be negotiated when you go to do your bank depository, your interest rates. Right now, you can see we're 5%.
Okay, now we're going to go on to item 3, which is our quarterly updates by the different groups.
Did you miss, excuse me, Mayor, did you miss 2C?
Because I changed it over and I cut it out. Sorry. 2C, presentation mission baseball Floresville Community Night, Monica Cordova.
evening, Mayor, Council. Once again, Michigan's baseball organization will be highlighting South Texas communities. Saturday, May 4th will be Floresville Community Night. North Park Toyota has purchased tickets and provided them to the city of Floresville to enjoy. The game will feature a post-game fireworks display. The city will provide the first pitch and crowd welcome. Also, we will have a kiosk set up at one of the entrances with bags that the Chamber of Commerce will provide with items highlighting area businesses. There will be pictures highlighting Floresville on the scoreboard throughout the game, and a flyer will be provided to insert in their playbill promoting the city of Floresville. So I have tickets for that, I've given the bulk of them to the Little League, because that's what we did last year, and we had an excellent turnout last year. We had a lot of people out there, and most of those kids with their parents went out there, and we had a very nice big crowd.
So how many tickets do you have on hand right now?
I have probably about 100,
What's the date again?
May 4th.
May 4th?
And I do have tickets for council.
Who is going to be throwing out the first pitch for the city of Floresville? Is it going to be our mayor?
Well, the mayor, we
Was gonna
discussed
do
it.
it, but she's got a conflict because she's got to do the opening for the Relay for Life.
So we've contacted Win Hopkins with the Little League, and what he's gonna do is his coaches in the minors, the older kids, because they can throw far enough, are going to nominate 2 children on each, boys and girls, on each of the teams, and they will all be provided tickets to go to the game, and that night at the game, he'll do a drawing. And whoever gets drawn, whoever name gets drawn, gets to go down in the tunnel with us and go out and throw the first pitch.
And I recommend that somebody from our chamber accompany that young man or young woman throwing the pitch
Yes,
to
we can.
stand out there and represent the Floresville Chamber, who's taken a real lead in this and helping out, like maybe Mr. Vipond or somebody from your board that could accompany that young man.
Absolutely, it's not cricket, but it'll work. Sure. I'll be back.
I'd like to ask anybody in the audience if they'd be interested in some tickets. They would give out tickets.
Well, they can contact me here at City Hall.
Okay, go ahead and contact y'all.
I can give out tickets to anybody who'd
I
like.
see Gracie waving in the
Yes.
back.
And I think our local newspaper would be more than glad to photograph that young man
Yes.
throwing that pitch for
Well,
the
we do
local
get,
newspaper.
the missions do provide us with pictures. Well, pictures and they do, last year they gave us a poster with all the signatures on them and a CD with all the pictures they take throughout the whole game.
We want Johnny out there.
When's the 4th, the weekend or?
May 4th.
Is it on the weekend or is it?
It's a Saturday.
I'll be in Fort Worth that weekend, so I'd love to attend, but I won't be able to attend.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, now we can go on to our reports. The first one is 4A Corporation, Mr. Gleason.
Good evening. 4A board has been rather busy here the last couple of, well, since 1st of January, and even more busy since you passed the resolution to have us take over the event center operation. One of the first things we found that we could take on without getting too much farther down was the fee schedule. We were concerned that we were not in the ballpark with other convention centers and event centers on our fees. And we were giving up a lot of our income because of that. So we appointed a committee, a subcommittee, to investigate this. And if you'll notice on what you were just given, prepared by Melissa Popham, which I'd like to thank you for doing. We have sort of a summary of how this came about and what we're doing with it. We did some background checking on things. We've gone out and looked at several different places, and we took the following information information in consideration when we're putting this in operational expense, what we had to operate the building, whether we were making money on what we were doing, or losing money on certain items. Existing and future revenues, staff and departmental responsibilities, lease contract terms, fees charged by comparable event centers, and future use and land use. I've given you a timeline as to how we proceeded on this. And it goes on through the current time here. April 8th, Monday, we had our meeting and came up with these fees, or proposed fees. Our hope is that we bring our center a little more income off of the things that we're doing. It's hard to raise fees. We don't necessarily want to, but we have to consider that we have to be more profitable than what we are. We have to be responsible for making our center as profitable as it can be, if not profitable, at least offsetting expenses. So what we would like to do, our attorney has prepared a resolution, and we have a fee structure, exhibit A and B on the back part. I'm sorry, no, it's just exhibit A. It's all combined into one. And we've shown you the description of the item, the previous fee, and the proposed fee on each area, in each area. There are a number of things that you have to consider when you're looking at this and comparing to other event centers. Every event center has a different fee structure. Sometimes the fee structure is such that all things are included. Sometimes they break it down, and so you have to be very careful when you put these parts together to ensure that you're on the right track. And we've tried to do that. Now, we're not asking you to approve these tonight. We want you to look it over. We want your input. We want any suggestions you might have. And if you have questions, if you'll get them to the city manager, he'll give them to us, and we will go over them and try to have answers for you at the next meeting, where we would like for you to consider our resolution at that time. You have any questions?
One of the, in discussing this with a number of people, I'm certainly not opposed to changing the rates, but I also understand the challenges that you're facing with that. A couple of points with this, particularly as it relates to nonprofit organizations. And as I see, you've got a 20% discount for those applying in the city that, let me just get a little point here. Those that provide services to the residents of Floresville. We have a variety of nonprofits. We have nonprofits that are based in Floresville. We have nonprofits that are based in Wilson County. And then we have nonprofits that are outside the county. I would almost look at a tiered basis for that in your rate structure or your discounting, whatever. And if that's possible or not, I don't know.
What we tried to do there was to say people who provide services to the city of Floresville, to the residents of Floresville. And that would take in a lot of things, people, organizations that may be outside the city limits, but do service people from Floresville and things like that. We don't necessarily want to, we're not looking to give discounts maybe to nonprofit in Bear County. It services totally Bear County. But that would have to be on an individual basis. They would have to come to us and ask us for it.
My point here, Mr. Gleason, is that there may be a nonprofit in Bear County that does a portion of their service to the residents of Floresville. They would benefit from a discounted rate. But those nonprofits that are based in Floresville that do primarily, if not 100% of their work to the residents of Floresville, are probably deserving of a little greater break than maybe somebody out of San Antonio. Hence the tier piece.
I understand, and we will certainly look at tried to fix it a little bit, but it's hard to define in a lot of ways. And I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we can try.
The second piece in this that I think is important, that as you propose these increases in fees to increase the revenue, what that's going to change the projected revenue for the event center. In our budget this year, we've looked at, okay, what are the projected rentals based on the previous fee schedule? How much is this going to increase it? What are we going to see in the total numbers? And that may take a little work with Ms. Fagans.
And it's also going to take a little bit of guesstimation on what, we may lose some clients based on this fee structure, but we may gain in other areas, and that's going to be a little bit of a guess too.
Mr. Gleason, is there a list of nonprofit organizations that have used the facilities in the past
I can try to develop one.
and their location?
I can try to, we've been fairly liberal about it, but we look at organizations that are not, if they're providing a service, that's one thing. If they're an organization that's trying to make, profit, make a for-profit event, let me say it that way, then we look at that a little different too than one that's just out there trying to provide a service. If you're having, let's say a church is out there doing I'm just pulling this off the top of my head, an Easter egg hunt. That's a nonprofit thing, and they're not making a profit on it, and it's costing them to do it. Whereas someone who's going out there and saying, well, we're going to have this event to make profit, to do something else. And there's all sorts of, like you were saying, there's all sorts of different situations.
Which brings me to the not-for-profits.
Right.
Okay. In that, say somebody wants to hold a commercial event there that's going to bring great exposure to the city, where do we draw the line? Where do we negotiate the fees? And my point in this is not what is the procedure, but that we define that procedure so that everybody knows, hey, if you're doing this, this is going to be the rate you pay. Or if you're doing this, this is the rate you're going to pay. So it doesn't matter that I hear rumors, and a lot of that is just rumors, that somebody had an event out there and they paid this much, but somebody else had a similar event and they only paid this much. That we define that process so that whatever it is, we know what X person is going to pay.
I understand what you're saying, and we will try to define that as best we can. I'm not sure we can cover every point, but we can certainly work on that idea.
The recommendation that I would make, as you put in here, no way can we address any and all of the potential pieces, but that any variance from the published rate schedule must be approved by the board.
Right. And I think we've discussed that, but I don't know that we put it firmly in the proposal. But we will do that. We'll look at
Well,
it.
it should be, I feel it should be same price across the board. That way you don't have no deviation.
And that's
what we tried to do.
That's the problem. It puts the board in a bind when all of a sudden the board decides we're going to give a variance to this group and not to this group. And that's one thing that's it would have to be something that I would suggest, even maybe something that the council brought to us and said this is very important to the city of Floresville that we provide this event, and then ask us for a variance on it. I'm not sure that we would like, we don't want to be bogged down with everybody asking for a variance on the.
Well, if they know the set price,
And
that's it.
I would certainly say that maybe if the city council came to us and asked for a.
No discount for the city council.
But anyway, I'm not saying individual, but I'm saying as a council, we want to go on a certain event. Of course, those are things we have to consider. But it's very hard to codify something like this, every incident that might come up down the future 10 years from now. And this is also a work in progress. If we may come back to you in 6 months and say, we have gone up too much on this particular thing, and we're losing business over it, and we may need to change it. or we have found that we're losing money in this area and need to change that. As I told you when we said, when you asked us to take this over, this is going to be a learning process for everyone. And I was just down in Corpus this week at the American Light Center down there. And I was talking to some of their executives and the people that are involved in the management of that facility. And they say they learn every day about things that they had no idea what to do. And you have to experiment a little bit with it, but we can learn as we go. And I think this is going to be a document that's changing. It's going to have to be fluid.
And I have a question on, I'm hoping this is a typo. On your rentals for the meeting rooms, you have on the 17 by 20, $25 a day, previous fee, proposed fee, $300 a day. That's a big hike.
Yeah.
Is that correct, or is it a typo?
It's per hour.
Okay, so, because it says day, so that should be hour?
Okay, I'll look at that.
Okay.
I was just gonna
Because
say
I
that
thought,
there's
whoa.
quite a few,
Are all those
where it says per
rooms,
hour.
these 5 rooms, are they all booked already? Is there somebody occupying it every day?
A lot of those rooms are, yes.
So when they see this increase,
Well, the thing
I
is
think we
that
can retroactively.
Some of those, no, this would be for future contracts that we enter into and things like that. We're not saying we're gonna go back and charge people who have already booked a facility or who have a contract with us.
Mayor
That
and Councilman,
contract is-
if I may address, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Bill. One of the things that we are working on, and as Councilman Miller stated, Laura Fagans has asked to be included in the 4A board meetings to assist them with giving the financial reports that they requested, but in addition, to make sure that we are in compliance with the fees that they are proposing, because this needs to be in an ordinance form, just like everything else. So she has stepped up and said she'd help them. I know the board's done an excellent job in the work that they've done, and we can tweak whatever we need to on that deal. So I think that.
So in lieu of a resolution, you're suggesting that we do this in an ordinance?
Well, this resolution is just from the board to the council. Once we accept it or once we finalize it, it needs to be in an ordinance form, yes, on a fee ordinance form. Yes.
This resolution is from us to you.
It's just a proposal, this is what we've done so far, and I think their legal advised them to do it in a resolution form, just so it holds some weight down.
I was gonna see too, Mr. Gleason, on, it says Friday and Saturday, Friday through Sunday, the set price. But are we looking at maybe holidays, say New Year's Eve is coming and it falls on a Tuesday, would it be at $500? Which I think maybe y'all can look at that, at putting holidays,
In other words,
18,
not just the Saturday through Sunday time, but maybe include certain holidays.
certain holidays, like, we can't let it go for $500. Somebody wants to come in and make an event
Yeah,
for
I
$500.
understand what you're saying.
So just
Our
kind of-
weekly rate, if you don't follow what I'm saying, our weekly rate during the week is less than our weekend rate. Our weekend rate is highly booked, and we're in the 2014 on that. But our weekly rate is what we're trying to bring up, our during the week rate, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And those times, we have it priced less because we're trying to encourage more people to come there and use it during those times.
And there are 10 federal holidays.
But I'm saying more like the New Year's Eve. If I want to make a New Year's Eve dance, it's going to cost me $500 to use the facility. Well, I want it for the next 5 years, and I want to book it for.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's cheaper that day because, but the holiday makes it a special day. And it's a hour night. We need to look at that. I understand what you're saying. And I appreciate you for bringing these up because these are things that we didn't necessarily come up with in the meetings. And we would, sometimes when you're looking at something like this, you get involved in the tree and forget the forest out here sometimes. But other than that,
Well, we commend you and your board for the hard work that you've done. This is long overdue.
thank you. And I'd like to thank the board and Melissa Coffin for putting this together. I was in Corpus this week and I didn't see this till I got here this afternoon. She's done an excellent job.
Mr. Gleason, when is this coming back to the council?
We were looking at somewhere in the 2 week, I think you have another meeting on what date? 28th, I believe it was. And during that time, we're going to have, after we come back, we are planning on having a meeting scheduled immediately after your meeting. Well, not the same day, but like Monday after. Take into consideration things that you bring to us. And we realize we haven't created the absolute end-all product here. So when you come back to us and say, we're concerned about this or concerned about that, we can then go back with some ideas and try to fix those things that you're looking at. And it's not going to be, it's not where we're arguing with you about what we're going to do. It's that we need to mesh our work together and work together on bringing this as a unit.
Right. And you might consider a fee for the Wi-Fi that y'all have out there.
Yeah, I understand that. That's something else that we looked at and talked about. Such things, you know, in the pricing of your building, we're competing with a lot of different places for a lot of our stuff. And the way you price it is, you know, some places if you pay $1,500 or $1,800, that includes everything. But then other places, you can pay $2,000 and it doesn't cover the tablecloths, it doesn't cover the use of the screens, all of this stuff. So you have to really look at what you're covering. It makes it very difficult.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason, for your hard work.
Mayor, we've got, on new business agenda item A, we've got Deanna Civic from our friends at TCEQ that drove down from Austin. We think we can move them up to do their presentation so we can continue with these good presentations by our board.
That would be fine. And move on then to new business A, consideration and action to approve TCEQ contract on air quality monitoring system. Could you state your name for the record, please?
My name is Deanna Civic, I'm with the Commission on Environmental Quality.
Could you repeat it, because I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Disregard the mic and just speak.
Okay, my name is Deanna Civic, I'm with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. This is for a site agreement to replace an air monitoring station at water well number 1.
The council in their packets has the agreement from TCEQ. TCEQ, of course, is our state regulatory agency. They have talked to the 4A board at one time about putting a monitoring station at the event center site, but because of some drainage studies that we were waiting on, we asked them to hold off. They found a second site that was adequate for what they needed, which is off of Hospital Boulevard. We did talk to Mito Chapo, who was our water production supervisor, and made sure that this was acceptable to him to have this air monitoring device at that location without affecting any of his work. He said it was fine with it. Rudy Vasquez also looked it over, and our attorney reviewed the contract. And as far as we know, other than any questions that you may have, we ask the council to approve this agreement.
What is the purpose of this air quality monitoring center?
That's a serious question.
This will be to monitor the regional ambient air quality.
Part of the statewide system to keep track of the level of quality in our area.
Is there a mile radius that it would cover, or is it just a particular area or?
It depends. Typically, we usually place monitors around Texas so that we can get a broad view. For this one, it will be
will we be able to monitor these results, or where would we get this information?
You can see all of the monitoring data at our website. It's the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality website.
And how does it benefit Floresville?
This is just to give you a kind of peek into what your air quality is looking like. And these monitors, we're considering automated gas chromatograph and nitrogen dioxide. So this will show you a couple different parameters.
Will it be live data that we'll be able to get, or is this?
There's approximately a 3-day delay.
One of the advantages, I guess, is to ensure that the air is safe for our citizens, and then we will be the first to receive that information. And just with all the activity, that we've got with the Eagle Ford, we can ensure that we've got access to that information before anybody else in our area.
Is there any issue with the agreement, Councilor?
No, there isn't. The state has, Mr. Miller, made noted in here, the state has its usual provisions about liability and indemnity, and generally speaking, the state emphasizes its sovereign immunity, but other than the usual boilerplate, says the state is protected from nuisance suits and other matters. It's a standard state contract.
Now, I know, other than providing the site, the city has no other obligation in this.
Any vandalism to the site or anything, it's all, it's, okay.
With that, Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the TCEQ air monitoring agreement at 1404 Hospital Boulevard.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Miller. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Rodriguez. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Now we're going to go back to 3B. There's someone here from the XDC.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For those that don't know me, my name is Raymond Ramirez, and I was placed into the interim executive director's position for the FEDC back in mid-January. My report today is going to consist of what has been taking place in the last 2.5 months since I've been in there. The FEDC has had a number of projects that have been ongoing up to this point, and we have continued to follow up on them. We've had to do some changes in some of them, the way the procedures were being handled, but I think so far we're headed in the right direction. I think last month we've completed half a year of our fiscal year, and our main concentration right now is El Rancho Business Park, which is on Farm to Market Road 537. When this project was developed, the 304 acres, which right at the present time we have almost filled the area, with the exception of a couple pending tracts of land out there. Nevertheless, water, electricity has been provided throughout. We're still working with the telephone company in trying to get the right-of-ways. We have just recently been granted the permit for the main entrance. I think this main entrance has been in the process of being approved, and up until almost a little bit over a week ago, we finally got notification from TxDOT that it has been approved. So now we're in the process of getting our engineer to work up a plan for the bidding process for the entrance. We definitely have to provide the promises that were made to all the tenants that are out there right now. A lot of the tenants were promised a road within 90 days after signing their purchase of property. There was no way, as far as I could see, that this was going to be completed. Even up to now, you know, it's going to take a little while, you know, because right now we're looking at all the financial monies that are in the budget, and we can only assume that sales tax will be coming in. But our main concentration right now is to, I think, work on the entrance and work on the main roads to all the facilities out there. I know that there have been other projects that had been mentioned that were going to be worked on this year, but because of the situation that we have out there and the people wanting their roads out there, we're going to have to concentrate mainly on that. I know that we have the project out on Paloma Drive right now, the apartments. They're being worked on at this time. I think very shortly, probably, you're going to be seeing structures out there. Right next to it, you have the state agencies that are going to be housed in one building. That also will be very shortly going to be completed, and you're going to have concentration of the state agencies that are providing funds and assistance to the people in the community. They'll be housed in there. So, especially those two projects on Paloma Drive and the one on El Rancho Business Park are the three main concerns that we have at this time. I know that we have, I have looked personally at the situation regarding the playing fields. I know I'm a firm believer in providing baseball diamonds for those leaguers, and I'm very interested in trying to see if we can at least start on a project that we have intended to start it this year at the North Crest area. And I know that some work has been done prior to me getting into this position, but I think we need to do more work out there than anticipated. But until we know definitely, you know, financially where we at and how much the cost factor is going to be on the construction of the entrance and the road at the industrial park, will we then make other things happen. Those are the things that,
Ram, I'm gonna hit you with a bunch of requests.
Okay.
And a question. First question is, you know, the 4A or 4B appointed you as the interim director. What actions are they taking in a search for a permanent director?
we have put it out in the, through TML and through ACOG, and applications have been flowing in the last 2 weeks. So we are getting a lot of response on those ads.
Do we have a timeline that they expect to be reviewing or starting to interview?
We're having a meeting Monday, and I'm sure that, you know, they're going to be asking how many we have, and, you know, then at that point in time, I imagine that they'll be deciding what.
There wasn't a total of 3 websites or 3 sources that they were gonna go out for applicants?
Well,
wasn't there 3 in the beginning, or has there always been 2?
My understanding is, and I can say I may be wrong, but the ones that was through ACOG and through TML. Andy, do you recall, here's the new one?
That's what we assisted them with, TNL and ACOG to get that out.
Was that land that was donated or?
Yes, Mr. McKenzie, who is the property owner for the Northcrest subdivision, donated those acreage right next to the creek.
Next to the creek?
Yeah. And we have some plans, you know, to where a number of fields, soccer fields, and other activities for that area. But at the same time, you know, we need to know the cost factor. I think, Mayor, you had mentioned, you know, the price.
I was told 65,000, but I'm right.
Which brings us to an interesting point here, Ram. The two other requests that I have is one for a listing of the projects that the FEDC is currently involved in, as well as those that they are planning on doing in the future. The second request I have of the EDC is for a financial report. I think that in these quarterly reports to the council, we need to be looking at a financial report of the EDC, because the EDC's finances are not included in the monthly reports that we as the council receive. My third request of the FEDC comes back to the Rancho Grande, in that $1.5 million of the $8 million bond issue that the city did ended up in the FEDC's hands, and I don't know if that's the right terminology, for the purpose of Rancho Grande development. I'd like to see an accounting of that $1.5 million. I think that board has been in place and we've had an opportunity to start to get some things going. I, as a council member, would like to see that we use that $1.5 million appropriately in Rancho Grande.
I will get those reports.
I know you jumped into a lion's den, Ram, and I appreciate the work that you have done. I've heard nothing but praise from your board members, and you have a strong board there that I believe is working to get things done. We just need to ensure that the council is informed maybe a little bit more than what has been occurring. And the second point I'd like to make to you is, I don't know if you have actually formally met or not, but Doug Jones is the president of our Parks Foundation, who's working hard to ensure all of our parks are brought up to speed. And if this is a project out at Northcrest that the FEDC is considering, I think that we may need to partner with the Parks Foundation to ensure that we're going in the right direction.
And if I may, could I ask you, was the land donated to the B Corporation or is it donated to the city? Like, can I have control of it if I can get the money to do whatever, or does he own it?
That would, you know,
The city, right?
It's donated to the city.
I think it went to the city, and then what the city did at the time said, well, for the FEDC to try to develop it. Oh, that'll be fine.
And Councilman Miller, Mr. Jones has seen the plans, and I think so has his board, right?
Yes.
I don't think they
You
all
were the
saw
one-
it.
Yeah, I think the plan is the sketch that we have.
But if the FEDC is considering funding a portion of that, I would certainly partner with Mr. Jones, and let's ensure that we're going down the right road with that.
Amen.
May I make a comment or a question here? Before you answer Mr. Miller's question on where we have spent or will be spending the 1.5 million, my understanding has been, and I haven't found anything differently, that 1.5 million was never dedicated only to the industrial park. It included the industrial park, but it had other projects involved too. So unless you can find where it specifically says that the 1.5 was dedicated, I think your answer has to include other things too.
And that may be the case. My question was about the $1.5 million.
We will do the research and we will try to find it.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Rodriguez? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go on to planning and zoning. Mr. Lightfon?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Planning and zoning
with the moratorium effect, had two fairly quiet meetings. Last month, we particularly concentrated on the new Richardson's Chevrolet dealership and the interesting challenges that come with voluntary annexation. And we updated on that last night as well. We did have a application last night for change of use, which I believe is coming before council in a somewhere on the agenda tonight. The P&Z last night, because of a boundary dispute, tabled it, but also because it was incorrectly, it was under, it should have been under business and it's under commercial. We're putting offices in, and that is under business, it is not under commercial. So those are the two reasons it was tabled last night. Most exciting thing that happened yesterday was we had our first meeting with the land use development plan, with the future land use plan. And we're going to fast track this. We had originally thought it was going to take 5 to 6 months, but we are actually going to meet every 2 weeks and try to finish it somewhere around the 26th of June. That's going to require a lot of work by the board, and we are also widening the scope of input. We will, with Cindy's help, we will be inviting school boards, River Authority, Phelps, FEDC, 4A, and TechStop to come to these meetings, and we want their input on Floresville's growth. So hopefully, our next meeting is 2 weeks' time. And as I say, we will be widening the scope on that. It's exciting. I would urge anybody, public as well, to come to these meetings and see what we're doing. It would be very easy to start a new city and plan a growth. But when you've got a city that's as old as Floresville is, you have to start with what makes Floresville special. And I don't know if anybody saw the board in there, but the number of items that came up to make Floresville special last night surprised even me. I was extremely pleased. And our first project that we have, our homework project, is to come up with a mission statement by the next meeting. So we'll be working on that. And that's where we're at with the P&Z right now. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Buckland, as this goes on, I know that there are challenges in getting all of the council to participate in these meetings because of Open Meetings Act issues and because of time constraints and all of the other meetings that go on in the city. If there's any documents, drafts, or anything to that effect that are distributed at these meetings, could you forward them to the council as well, just for record? That way we can kind of be following the progress that you have if we cannot attend these meetings.
Absolutely, I can do that. And we did have a document last night, which was basically, this was the first meeting, setting a schedule, setting expectations, and trying to get a working plan going, which we did successfully, and I will forward those to the city council.
Or even your, summary as the chairman of what was accomplished, as a note to those attachments so that we can follow the progress of this as well as what's on the agenda for the next meeting, that if a council member sees something very specific that they're interested in, they can attend.
And I would like to say that I'm extremely impressed with Chris Stewart, who is heading this up. He's done this before, which really helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buckland. Okay, next is item 3D, Parks Foundation, Mr. Jones.
Mayor, City Council, yes, I'm still Doug Jones, and I'm glad to be here. I don't know if this is in the right format, but I'm learning, as are the 7 exceptional directors, and I thank the Lord that you 6 gave me that talented group of people when you appointed them to fill in with, because they are energetic. Here's one for you, Director. I'll even get the newspaper guy. During the first quarter, we've had 3 meetings. The first meeting, Lou basically ran it for us and told us the whats and the wheres. And then the railroad song started, and I got elected their president. The person who nominated me, I then nominated her, and that's Cindy Cranston, and she will be our vice president. Michelle Talley's the secretary, and the treasurer is Joe Pires. 2 directors, one's here tonight, Thomas, volunteered to be our project coordinator. He's going to work with another of our directors, Alex Trevino. They're going to be like 2 hands together, working, hopefully when we start getting some money, that we'll be able to start knocking off those projects that Alex has in the City Recreation and Park Department. We reviewed and prioritized his list, and hopefully, like I said, once we find some money, we can start doing some things. We requested the council to appoint Alex as our 8th director. As per our bylaws, it said that we needed somebody from the Park Recreation. You took the recommendation, you appointed Alex, so we've got 8 great people. We reviewed our bylaws, we vetted them, and hopefully next Wednesday we can approve them. The good news is we got a little bit of money. The bad news is that when Jonelle and myself sat down with Laura, she advised me that because the previous foundation didn't submit paperwork in timely manner to the government of Texas, that the city was presented with a $1,400 bill based upon some information on the founding documents that talked to about $90,000 worth of monies that would come across the foundation. Jonelle has talked with people up in Austin, and we've yet to get it resolved. If we don't get it resolved, then we will reimburse the city the $1,400 plus whatever the change was. But hopefully, she can get that fixed for us. We've been trying to figure out what to do with that $1 water charge. When I did my fuzzy math, after your water and sewer rates, I said 2,500 connections times 19 months, we ought to have about $40,000. When Janelle and I sat down and talked with Laura in February, she said the account balance in the special revenue side was only $26,000. So I'm sitting there saying, how come we're short? Well, a clairvoyance came over and I was briefed today that the $26,000 that she talked about was your close of business FY11 and 12. So if you would correct your item 3, where it says 26, we're actually near $37,000 in that account that we can spend money with the city recreation department. And since Lou's here, I'm going to take this opportunity to ask him, somewhere along the line, I was led to believe that that money was to be used as a matching fund account. And if it's not, then with the concurrence of obviously the city council and the rec department, can we start spending it?
Yes, it was intended, to answer your question, to be matching funds. And it was intended to be matching funds with Texas Parks and Wildlife when they had a program with matching funds. And in the last biennium, they did not. And my understanding is that that's not going to be refunded. But if you watch the legislative budgeting process, you may find some money getting put in there, but assuming not, then you can use it otherwise.
Would we be ill-advised to start expending that funds?
You need to look at the budget first. The budget, and Presiding Officer Strauss from San Antonio has got the budget almost finalized for the House. There's a document you can look at and find out if Parks and Wildlife will have any matching funds, or you can call the commission directly. But assuming that answer is negative, the answer is yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So projects that we've undertaken, our Vice President Cindy Cranston is developing an informational flyer. Our intent was to get it out at the 2 Easter services in Pecan Park, and we're going to get it out last Saturday to the Little League season opener out at the city park. But we didn't have some information that we currently have, and I'll explain that when we get down later, so that she's going to still do it. Sherry has offered your flyer machine out here, or the rotating screen, and Gloria out at the Civic Park has also said at Civic Center that if we had any kind of information, anything we wanted to do, that she would also put it on that electronic devices out there. Last week, Jonelle and Michelle undertook a Herculean task. They went out and found a professional painter. The mayor led us to a source of paint supplies from McCoy's. And they made the concession stand on the exterior and in the restrooms look like they were really brand new. I'd like to put a word in for Mr. Reuben Trinidad, who was the painter. McCoy's Building Supply had donated the paint. The outstanding work Michelle and Jonelle did. Larry Lacka from the Little League, and my neighbor Andy Holliday went out with me Friday. But if you've not been out there to see it from the outside, I mean, it looks brand new. The Wilson County Patriots have joined the Catholic Girls and I think the Knights of Columbus to volunteer their support. They're going to try to help us raise funds by doing a bake sale / garage sale. And they're even talking about sponsoring a bike ride like they do over at either Post or Lavernia. And some of us played in Sheriff Tackett's Santa fundraising. They had 24 teams, 4 golfers apiece at $65. There's 18 holes that you can get sponsorship on the holes to make some money to raise money for us. If anybody out here knows of deep pockets, please see me, because we need the money. And if you want to volunteer to come out and do things, there's a lot of work to be done in all your city facilities. On our wish list, we include, right off of your M&S report from last year, the restroom. And Lord help me, those 3 directors that are female, I mean, after seeing some of the stuff that we saw prior to painting, I wouldn't even let my mom use it bathroom. So we got some work to do, and again, if there's money, we're going to get there. I had a chance to visit with the pool manager. That facility's got some rot in the roof and whatever. We want to tackle that too, but again, we need money. Or if you know a corporation that wants to come and build us a new swimming pool facility, please. We'd like to irrigate the sports fields. In fact, last Tuesday morning, as I was going out there to do the painting, I saw Alex and his crew. You had a water line to break at Pecan Park. They found out that one of their meters is always on. So if we can go out there and get a professional irrigation company to come in and put irrigation in parks, we're going to save some time, effort, and money that those guys can do the other things in the city. And Lou pointed out in the very first meeting that Pecan Park used to be a lush pecan forest over there. And there's been some degradation for whatever reasons, probably 2.5 years of drought this year, back 2.5 years. And then when I first put gutters on my house, my neighbor says, I was the Jonah that caused the first drought in 2008. So we're going to work there. And last but not least, Mr. Peter Uhas volunteered his time and his effort. We now have a Park Foundation Facebook page. Hopefully that will give us some information flow, not only with the citizens of the city, the county, surrounding areas, whatever. Please jump on it. Tell us when and what you can do for us. You know, that's not what you're going to do for yourself, but do it for your citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. You've done an awful lot during your break. Now we're going to go on to the municipal court. Mr. Judge.
Mayor, today at 4:46 p.m., Ms. Carvajal came in and advised that the Judge Garza was unable to attend.
I see there's a report in our boxes.
Yes, ma'am, that was put on y'all's desk just prior to that. We don't have an explanation on it. I don't feel comfortable speaking to it because I've not reviewed it with the judge. We can try to put her on possibly the next council meeting to discuss those numbers with you.
Let's do that. Okay. Now we go to street maintenance plan. I'm sorry, ordinances. Now the ordinances, are you going to speak on that, or who's going to speak?
I was going to speak on the ordinances, Mayor, Council, good evening. All of you received your ordinance books on Monday. Those are the most updated correlated books that we have. We've gone through them. In addition, we added a couple of ordinances to the back that have been passed since 2010, which is the last set of correlations. Those are the ones that have been passed and signed and what we have in our books currently. Our ordinance committee we're looking forward to, as you can see in there, some of those ordinances are back from the 70s and not been updated. That's something that I think is going to be a good thing for our ordinance committee to work on. But we've thoroughly gone through them. I feel comfortable in that what we've got out there is good. We've got all of the old original signed documents. They're actually sitting in the mayor's office. There's 5 giant books back from the 70s that have the original signed copies in them. So if you'd like to see any copies of those ordinances, please feel free to contact us and we can get those for you. Are there any questions on the books that we handed out on Monday?
Did everybody get their books?
Yes, thank you. This was done to steal a word from Mr. Jones, a Herculean act. I haven't had a chance to go through all of it. My concern was, I know the city charter had been amended. Does this city charter that's in the ordinance reflect those amendments?
No, Mr. Miller, I did not check that. I can check that for you. It should have been changed. If it was correlated in there, the new section should be added in there. And it would have a date on the bottom of the page that would give you the last update on that.
Are we going to be getting an updated ordinance book where everything's brought into this format? I know we had moved some money around in the mayor and city council fund for the codification of this. Do we have a timeline on that?
No, we're looking at, for interrupting, we're looking at the ordinance committee to meet to decide what we need to hit on that. If that's something that we're gonna move on before we do that, or after we review what we need to and send everything at once.
And my question would be, generally these types of organizations have a subscription service of sorts that we enroll in that subscription service so that we start to get a current book, and then as updates are made, change page 7 to this page or that sort of thing. I think that's clearly the direction that we need to be going, is that subscription service, even as the ordinance committee moves forward.
And Mr. Miller, just so you know, there is one, the last one was actually turned in 2012, and it went through ordinance number 378, which was ratified on 9/23/2010. The additional ones that you have, that are copies of the ordinances, we will send in. It is a costly thing. No more ordinances we can send in at one time. We get a cheaper rate for when they come back. So once the ordinance committee starts looking over and we want to make changes to any of those ordinances, we can send a large package. We can do that this year if need be.
Can I recommend that you have those costs available to the ordinance committee so the ordinance committee can make a recommendation to council as to, do we start that process now or do we wait?
Absolutely, I can get the rate schedule.
Madam Mayor, if I can just chime in on one other thing, there's 2 things I want you to be aware of in the ordinances. These are ordinances that are codified, that are a general application. Your budget ordinance, your other ordinances like Mr. Gleason's fee schedule, your rates on water and sewer are probably not going to appear in here. So those are items that you're generally going to need to look for separately. For example, your tax rate, which you set annually, that's not going to appear in here, etc. We adopt the budget by ordinance. But with those exceptions, these are your general rules that apply across the board that your police officers will follow. Your land use scheme, when you eventually get some new update, all that will be here. So there will be some ordinances, just by way of caution, that are not of general application, that will not be here. So you'll have to keep in mind what kind of ordinances you're looking for, just by way of education.
Any questions on the ordinances? Okay, now we're going to go on to 4B. Consideration and action to approve street closure of half courthouse side of C Street between 3rd and 4th Streets for Chamber of Commerce Market Days and Now Ministries Health Fair, May 18, 2013. Is Ms. Bettis still? Ms. Bettis and Mr. Lightfoot? Can I speak on that? Chair.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dory Bettis, and I am with Now Ministries. I was here last month on the 28th to get permission for street closure, C Street in between 3rd and 4th. At the time, it was suggested to get rid of Mr. Viacon because of market days, and so that is what I did, and we got together, and you'll be happy to know that we will work together in this event and that it will be successful for the city of Floresville.
I think it will be very successful. Combining these two is an accident, but it's going to work very well. Along with trying to keep it Saturday, we should have a very busy downtown day.
Do we have a time frame on this?
Excuse me?
A time frame?
What time do you start?
May the 18th.
No.
What time do you start?
What time is the street going to be closed is what I'm asking.
Normally on market days, we try and close it late at night, the night before. If not, I'll be down there at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Till what time in the afternoon are we going to keep the street?
Normally this event normally finishes between 3 and 4 o'clock.
So we're looking at an all-day closure, essentially.
Yes, yes.
I would like to mention also that same evening, they're going to have the Armed Forces Parade. They'll be coming to our next council meeting for permission. So it'll be a full day.
Monday.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion, please. I move to approve the street closure of half the courthouse sides of C Street between 3rd and 4th Streets for Chamber of Commerce Market Days and Now Ministries Health Fair, May 18, 2013.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Castillo, second by Councilman Morones. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you all. Now we're going to go on to 4C, consideration and action to appoint members to the ordinance committee. Mr. Miller?
This has been a point of much discussion and much effort. And as our counselor and Ms. Pollock pointed out, there's probably a number of ordinances that need to be addressed in the city as well as how we codify them. We have all received a letter from council, recommending that an ordinance committee consist of 2 council members that would work with city staff and members of the community to do this and then come back to the council to make recommendations. We tabled it at the last meeting waiting for this final publication of the ordinances, and because we had talked about appointing Councilman Rodriguez in his absence, and I don't know that he was willing to serve on the ordinance committee, so now that he's here, he can speak to that issue.
Sure.
Make a motion to appoint Jim Miller and Eric Rodriguez to the ordinance committee for C.
I second
Are we appointing anybody in the community or
No, the recommendation was that it be, the committee consist of only the 2 council members. That city staff simply provide information to that committee and not be a member of the committee.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Miller, second by Councilman Castillo.
And just for sake of procedure, so we don't end up biting ourselves like we did with the audit committee, may I recommend that you appoint one at a time and call for the vote. That way, we're not, and those being nominated are able to abstain and we can still have a majority.
Okay. Mr. Miller, is going to make a motion for one? Someone else make
Make a motion to Jim Miller on 4C to appoint to the ordinance committee.
Okay, I have a motion for Councilman Miller to be appointed by Councilman Morones. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. I need a motion for the second person.
I'll call the vote.
I'm sorry. I'm not putting what. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Abstain.
opposed? All opposed? Motion carries 4-1-0. Okay, now,
Second question. Second point.
would someone make a motion?
Mayor, I move to appoint Eric Rodriguez to the Rights Committee.
Okay, may I have a second?
I second.
We have a motion to appoint Councilman Rodriguez by Councilman Guerrero, second by Councilman Castillo. All in favor?
Abstain.
Okay. All opposed? Motion carries 4-1-0. Thank you. Now we're going to go on to 4D. Oh, we skipped that one. We did. Okay. Okay, on this next item. Consideration and action to approve rezoning from residential to commercial 1716 and 1718 C Street. Before we go on to that, I would like to say that in all fairness to all parties involved, I would like to request this item to be tabled because the information that has been provided has not been seen by P&Z. This item should be tabled until P&Z receives this information and makes a formal vote on this matter before council has any discussion or vote.
I have a discussion. I attended the meeting last night, and according to Mr. Quintanilla, he came up that he had some litigation. And Mr. Python, if I can ask you a question. You said that the reason was, what was the reason for tabling it?
There were two reasons for tabling it. One, that there was a long discussion about a boundary dispute, and it wasn't resolved before the end of the meeting. I understand it may have been resolved now. Secondly, the request is wrong. The request is to build offices there. That is not under commercial. So the actual the request is incorrect.
But last night they had said, I don't know if they came from, who I heard it from, but they said that the bigger gap was doing it business. But if you do it in commercial, you can still build, do the office. Is that correct or is that wrong?
That is correct. On the tier portion of it, the commercial, the first item on there says use regulations of building or premises shall be used only for the following purposes. The first, number one, says any use permitted in District B. And if you flip back to District B, that includes business.
So Mr. Gonzalez is allowed to put it, that's what you're saying, right?
Under the tier of the way it's written, yes, sir.
And I'm not trying to cross over the P&Z, but I think the P&Z kind of didn't ask the question, and I asked him to speak last night, and I understand how the meetings go, and that's not a problem. But my concern was that the only thing, and I think you all got a piece of information there, what we're trying to zone is that, what is it, 70 by 213. And I don't know if Mr. Quintanilla's got a copy, but I'd like to give him one if he'd like to see this. You have a copy? Okay, and last night, y'all right away tabled it when he said, I have legal on this. And I don't know if he had a copy of it, but this is, the one that he's disputing is the alley. Now, Mr. Quintanilla, does this yellow part, are you disputing with legal action on that?
I'm disputing area 1 and area 2.
Okay, last night at the meeting, we were just talking about the yellow shaded area, which Mr. Gonzalez has the deed, he's got the variance. Can you help me here, Ms. Cindy? Did he provide the right documents?
Yes, sir. He came to my office this morning and provided documents from his survey that comes from the deed depicting what the survey is showing.
Are both of those addresses in that, in this, what is it?
The
block
surveyors,
2 and 6?
the surveyor's report coming from the courthouse's information is only coming from 1718C.
Okay, so our agenda is incorrect by wanting to approve the 1716 and 1718?
No, sir. The The property that's in question is the 1718C. It clearly shows that he does own the 1716C.
Okay,
Just
and
wait
both
for
of
the
those
small
are
one or
correct.
the big one?
The small one is 1716, the big one 1718.
I gotta come back to the procedural piece here, if I may. You said this information was just given to you this morning?
No, he presented this information upon his application.
Okay, so this information that we're seeing went to planning and zoning
Yes.
committee? Okay.
And to me, it was like, as soon as Mr. Quintanilla said, I have legal, they weren't talking about, Mr. Gonzalez was just talking about that one area. He wasn't talking, and I think Mrs. Sanchez at the time too, was asking about the easement.
Yes.
And that was her concern. The easement has no, and another thing that I like to say, that all that block there is already commercial, except, I think, Mr. Quintanilla's house. Even the gentleman that was speaking last night, that had said that it was he didn't want anybody passing by, and whatever reason he gave, his property is commercial.
For the sake of procedure, it's already, that it's gone to P and Z, and P and Z has tabled it. And, nothing against, wanting to zone it in any particular way, or not zone it, just for procedure. I don't want to overstep P and Z and all that they're doing to keep things legit, to keep everything aligned. I would, the recommendation that you spoke about earlier was to table it, correct, Mr. Blackburn?
Yes. Yes, but everything is clear, everything is clear. Your recommendation, Mr. Jocelyn, about this item here, is there something, or Mr. Rosenberg? To me, I feel that Mr. Gonzalez is going to have to put the stamp, wait another 2 months or.
No. I've already spoken to Mr. Gonzalez. We have a meeting in 2 weeks. I've already offered to add that as a special meeting.
Okay.
And nothing is clear to me, that's why I came.
Okay, what is it, I'm not trying to be rude or trying to be mean, what is it that you don't understand about he's trying to zone these 2 properties he
I
owns?
do understand that. My simple fact is I'm running by a survey that's put here that I received, and the shaded areas are over boundary my property line. Now,
Can I see the copy you have? May I see
it's the
it?
same copy you have.
Okay, okay.
And the only person that's clear here is you. I'm not clear with anything.
He doesn't have that copy. One of you might want to bring copies here.
So it's the shaded part right here. See?
Okay, look.
And
This is what we're voting on right here. This here is still in dispute, this is the only, that's why I'm asking you, are you against, this is the only, the deeds that he has of these 2 properties right here. This, the alley, has no, we're not voting on that. This that you have over here, we're not voting on that. We're voting this for commercial.
okay, I
Yeah,
understand.
but for the sake of procedure, we have the
Well,
time.
I'm gonna try because he's got a lot of money invested, and I'm gonna try
No, I
to
understand.
make a
I understand
motion
everybody's-
to approve the zoning for R1 to commercial, 1716 and 1718 C Street. I make a motion.
I abstain because he's my cousin, and he's a second cousin of mine, and I have to abstain my vote because for nepotism purposes. Is that within grounds, Mr. Rosenberg?
It certainly is appropriate from an appearance point of view as well.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And let me, if I may, while I've got the floor just a minute, tell the council if you have your ordinance book with you, if you'll look at 153.102, subsection B, it says it is the intent of this chapter that all questions of interpretation and enforcement shall be first presented to the zoning administrator, and that such questions be presented to the city council only on appeal from such decisions. At top A, it says the city council shall hold a public hearing on all appeals made to it. I don't think you can have an appeal to yourselves tonight procedurally when the matter's been tabled. And I think acting tonight on this is out of order.
Mr. Rockham, before you leave,
Yes, sir.
upon your decision on these Was the easement taken into consideration?
It was a very confusing meeting last night, and it was not clear to the P&Z board that the boundary dispute had been resolved by the end of the public hearing. When I closed the public hearing, none of the board members were clear that the boundary problem had been solved. That is why we tabled it.
Mr. Buckman, as soon as he said he had lawyers on it, he said, I recommend that you didn't even ask what paper did he present you any legal papers saying that he was in litigation?
I asked him who his lawyer was, and I was hoping he would bring either a
He
lawyer.
did not provide anything to you. He just said, you right off said, I recommend to the board. You know, it wasn't even 1 minute into the meeting.
It is not the board's problem.
After the motion.
To resolve boundary issues.
Mr. Vivon,
Yes, ma'am.
is there any reason why this would not be approved?
With all the information we have now, in 2 weeks' time, I would recommend that it would be approved.
You're gonna have the same information you had yesterday.
I disagree with you.
Philip, and you said you spoke with Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
He's okay with the meeting in 2 weeks?
I didn't ask if he was okay, I just said that he doesn't have to wait long. We can call a special meeting to tag on to our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks' time.
Okay, in that case, if you have a special meeting, my concern is that he's put the money into putting it all together, and then we're gonna hold it up. He's been waiting for a couple of months already, and then here we're gonna, so at the same time, how hard would it be for him to make it? Because y'all said last night that the business is a bigger window than the commercial. Is that correct, or is it vice versa?
Mr. Joslin said that.
Commercial is higher than the business, the commercial includes
Yeah.
So if he would come back, how hard would it be for him to do the business? Would he have to reapply and go all back to the steps, or do we start where we're at,
No,
or?
we start where we're at and just present it with all the information we have now.
I don't know what Mr. Gonzalez wants to do. There's a motion, but at the same time, I don't know if he can speak now, or do we have any, you want to go with the motion? I'm with the motion, well,
I
go ahead,
think, would you repeat what you said, Lou? I mean, are we out of order if we proceed with the motion?
I think procedurally, Mr. Rodriguez has pointed out that procedurally, the matter has been tabled below. You normally take things on appeal, and you don't have an appeal because there was a deadlock below in the sense that it got tabled. So I think that you don't have jurisdiction to act tonight. So
In other words, it's like it not coming to us yet again.
it shouldn't come to you.
And was it tabled conditionally? Meaning it was tabled, instead of tabled indefinitely, it was tabled conditionally on getting the boundary
On the
resolved.
boundaries resolved, yes.
but he did not present that in minutes. He just said, as soon as he said legal, he said, I want to just table it.
No, that's not true.
No.
We can read the minutes back.
Well, you said,
My recommendation was,
to the board,
to my board, was that we table it until the boundaries problem had been resolved. Those are exactly my words.
but you had
You can
this,
read the minutes on that.
you had this here. He showed you what they were voting
I
on.
understand that.
Okay, I mean, and then the application, if you knew it was wrong and you looked at it, why didn't we inform it to Gonzalez it was, the application was wrong?
The copy that you received right now, I received it this morning.
So you did not have this last night?
What I had last night was the same survey, but not colored in.
Because Mr. Gonzalez brought it in
More confusing.
to shade it in, but y'all as a B and Z should have looked at his deed, everything was in order. So it wasn't but I believe that the board didn't really pay no, it was 2-3 minutes at the most and it was shot down.
It wasn't tabled indefinitely, that's the problem.
It can be resolved in 2 weeks' time. I don't understand what the terminology is.
Other than not following procedure, I'm going to ask one more time, what will change in making a decision? What's going to be different? I mean, you said it would be approved. Is there anything else that would
I'd
keep
say I
it from
would
getting
recommend it for approval because
Mm-hmm.
the colored-in plan is a lot clearer than the plan we had last night.
Mm-hmm.
The boundary problem appears to have been resolved. So, but there is nothing, no reason to not approve it.
I mean,
Well, why can't we approve
they're
it
both
tonight?
in the
Because it needs to
audience.
be approved by the P and Z. It's 2 weeks, I don't understand the.
They're both in the audience. I mean, can they come up and ask if, I mean, if we can ask them if this issue has been resolved? I mean,
It's still gonna have to go to P and Z.
I'm uncomfortable giving the advice of legal counsel to entertain anything until the P and Z comes or until it comes to the council in an appeal. We spent the day, the mayor, Councilwoman Castillo, and myself, plus several hours earlier in the week as a result of an appeal to council that was followed procedurally correct, and now we're in mediation and litigation because of that. If we are going to bypass procedure, we're opening up the door to further litigation. Unless Mr. Gonzalez can tell us that we're presenting him with an extreme hardship by putting this off for 2 weeks, I'm inclined to follow the recommendation of council.
I think this would protect both parties that are having questions. That way they have time to work out whatever. And like you said, there should be no issue.
We
and
also
it's just
did not
procedure, because what we'd be doing is, if we jumped over P and Z, we'd be, creating precedent that, that this is the way it's gonna be done all the time. And we don't want to do
If
that.
it's not jumping, I just don't believe, I think judges raised those hands up too quick without asking him. When he said legal, well, show me something, any kind of document.
We also did not have the document that showed the metes and bounds last night at that meeting. That was taken to Ms.
You
Nichols
had
this
them, you
morning.
didn't have them highlighted.
No, that document was not presented.
Was it presented, Sydney?
This morning, sir. I had
No,
asked,
the old one, what did you present in there with?
what I have in the application was his copy of his tax resale deed, which is required for the application, and he brought in a survey. Now, in addition, I asked him last night if he could bring the metes and bounds to back up what the survey puts on the survey. And he did bring in the surveyor's report, which clearly says how the deed, what chapter it is from the courthouse, and what the surveyor goes by metes and bounds, and it is stamped by the surveyor.
As I said before, with all the information we have now, which we didn't have correctly last night, I see no reason why it will not be approved at the next meeting.
I rescind my vote and I'll second the table. And how soon do y'all think they would call a?
2 weeks.
No, special meeting for Friday, only would be 2 weeks for the.
That would be your special meeting?
Then they'd be on our agenda at the next council meeting.
He makes a motion to table, I rescind my vote.
You would withdraw your motion,
I withdraw my motion.
and then there's no action.
Okay, then we're gonna go action on that one. Now we're going to go on to 5, and we're going to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 to conduct private consultation with his attorney concerning the following current pending or threatened litigation. And we have 3 of them. One is Siskey versus Floresville. 2 would be proposed Pecan Springs RV Park, previously tabled on March 14, 2013. Lastly, 3, consultation with counsel concerning certain correspondence designated as client attorney privilege release from Privilege City Code 30.04. Can I have a motion to enter into executive session?
Madam Mayor, can I make a comment here based
Yes, sir.
upon our meetings today? It was the advice of counsel that we table any discussion on the Sicily versus Floresville issue, so I would like to withdraw that item from discussion in executive session.
I'd like to support that. I think that's appropriate.
And as a result, we'll make a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.071 for discussion on items 2 and 3 as previously read by the mayor.
Okay, may I have a second?
Madam Mayor, may I make one comment? I think we need to take those 2 executive sessions separately. In other words, take up item 2 word and come back out in open session and take whatever action we're going to take on it, so that Mr. Rodriguez can participate in the third item.
Am I being asked to stay out of executive session?
Yes, sir.
And if I choose not to?
I gave you the statute, sir.
But I don't have to, that option, I don't have that, I don't need to accept it, to stay out of executive session, correct?
I gave you the statute so you could read it for yourself. You were concerned about the procedure a few minutes ago. And I would think for your own protection, you'd want to follow this.
Okay.
Okay, then we're going to go into executive session. It is 8:50.
There's a motion. There's a motion to go. Second, was there a vote?
All in favor? Opposed?
Mayor, can you tell me the motion was made by Mr. Miller, second by Mr. Burke?
Yay!
Can I remind the citizens to retreat?
Just basically,
Okay, executive session has been closed. We enter into open session at 9:45. And the report is going to be given to us by Mr. Miller.
We're back in session now? Okay. Regarding status and direction involving the proposed Springs RV Park, I make a motion to direct the city manager to initiate water and sewer models of the city water and sewer systems and prioritize the review to respond to this watershed sewer shed that is in the subject of the Pecan Springs RV Park, and make a report to the council on the deployment and management of that plan, with the initial report occurring at the first regular meeting of the city council in May.
You have that written down?
Pardon?
Do you have that written down?
Yes, I do.
Can I get a copy of that?
I have a motion by Councilman Miller and a second by Councilman Castillo. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Apparently I can't vote on it for some reason.
It's called, in the local government code, section 171, he did the right thing. He's represented on the community.
Okay, now,
Now I'll make a motion to move back into executive session for consultation with council concerning certain correspondence designated as client attorney privilege regarding release from probate, City Code 30.04, also in accordance with Texas Government Code 551071.
can I have a second? Okay, Councilman Miller makes the motion to go into executive session. Councilman Guerrero seconds. Time is 9:46.
Do we have a vote on that, Mayor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
5-0.
That's up, this one goes faster than the last one.
Is he here to volunteer to work with me?
Let's do it back in session.
for tomorrow, So they keep going.
The chamber sent out this one email. Y'all all should have gotten it. But there's several items on that email that the chamber sent out yesterday or today. It's several things, and that's one.
Executive session has been closed. We enter into open session at 10:10 p.m.
Madam Mayor, regarding agenda item 4G, I guess it is. In accordance with City Code 30.04, I make a motion to release the demand letter from Mr. William T. Avila to the City of Floresville regarding services to include the summary of charges. So the cover letter and the summary of charges.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Miller. May I get a second?
You're talking just 3 pages.
3 pages.
I second.
I have a second by Councilman Morones. All in favor?
Aye.
I object to releasing any of it.
Okay, all opposed, 1. So motion carries 4-1-0. And it is 10:12 and we are adjourned.
Who seconded the motion?
Sorry.